ridiculous, absolutely unjust prosecution, and that's what I believe it was. It was unjust, it was cruel, and it was ridiculous as far as
One
I'm
of the
concerned.
first things you did was to dismiss your prior attorney's motion to lift the gag order.
Yes, I did that.
You seem to say in that LA-CBA meeting, September 15th, that was kind of critical because you needed to get that weight of not having to deal with the media off your shoulders. You needed to concentrate just on those 12 and this trial.
Well, I've written about this subject, and I think a lot of lawyers get very intoxicated with the media and lose focus on what they're there to do. And they start getting very addicted to cameras. And the media would like them to think the cases are won or lost in the media. And while the media is important, that's not where you win or lose the case. You win or lose the case in a courtroom in front of 13 people, 12 jurors and a judge. And I did dismiss the appeal of Judge Melville's gag order, which the prior lawyer had filed. And I did that because I felt that a gag order would be better for my client and better for me. I did not want to have to address media concerns. I did not want to have to talk to the media. I wanted to focus on the evidence, focus on the witnesses, work with Susan Yu and focus on our strategy, and that's what we did. And one of the advantages to having a gag order, particularly if you're representing a celebrity who is used to dealing with television or dealing with the cameras, is that, you know, if your typical entertainment celebrity will look at you and see somebody saying something negative on television and say, why don't you respond to it? Because in their mind, that's the trial. And with a gag order, you can look at your client and say, listen, I'm not allowed to do that. Let's win the case in front of the jurors. They're the ones that are going to decide your fate, not the people on television who have ulterior motives. And of course, most of their motives in this case were, we want a conviction because it'll generate ratings and revenue. And that was another travesty, the way the media handled the case. By and large, they were against us. They wanted to spin a conviction, and that was disgraceful in and of itself. That's a whole separate chapter.
I want to talk about that a little bit because I brought it on my YouTube channel, which is simply William Wagener, and there'll be clips from this on that YouTube channel here within 24 hours. But there was a day, it was May 11th, 2005, and I know you had no knowledge of this because you were totally focused. And in that day, Jim Mesereau, who was hired as a legal analyst for the big networks, and I was in that pool that day, and he made this statement. He says it was the day the boys and what's his name, Conklin, Macaulay Conklin, and they were in there, and he gave this statement. They were unflappable. There was rapid fire by the prosecution trying to shake these kids' testimony, and they were unflappable. And that was accurate. He actually gave an accurate, fair and balanced report, but it never saw airtime. I've searched the internet. That clip never got on air. And when he said that and I saw that, I had already gotten the process of going to New England Cable Company, which was collecting all the video from just outside the courtroom door and outside, and they were feeding it to the networks. And I went to Cable New England and said, you know, you're using the same tape over and over. You might get bad tape if you keep doing that. Let me help you. Let me buy that tape from you and give you a fresh new one every day. So I would give them, and I got archives of the actual tape before the networks even get their hands on. And I have that on YouTube, and nobody's ever seen it. But I noticed after that, Jim Mesereau didn't make those kind of positive statements for the defense anymore because he didn't get airtime if he said anything fair and balanced. He didn't get seen on Fox or CNN or ABC or NBC. He just didn't get airtime, and it was very obvious to me in the media pool, that the media, the mass media, maybe not the individuals reporting here at the courthouse, but at least the people pulling the switches and directing what gets on TV, was slanting this trial for a guilty verdict. And what I noticed when I'd go home is I would see no reporting how you dissected their witnesses and just ripped them to shreds. That was not reported. All you saw is, well, Michael was accused of this, and Michael was accused of that, and Michael was accused of this. And then I'd be waiting, where's the other side? And I didn't see it. Most days I didn't see it. And that day, May 11th, to me was a good day for Michael. because all his defense witnesses, you call all those boys that supposedly they said he had done something to, and they all got up there as young men. One had a beautiful fiance right there with them in the courtroom and said, Michael never touched me.
Yeah, that's how we started our defense case.
And I asked this gal who was a legal analyst, her name was Susan Phelan, and I just couldn't stand it at one point. I was so tired of the bias, I had to get this question. I said, okay, when we're done with 1108, is this the end of the 1108? And she said, no. And Conklin's credibility is in question here. And I stood back like, what? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Did you hear the same evidence I just heard?
Well, I was told after the acquittals by a very prominent person in the entertainment industry that I had cost the worldwide entertainment industry over $1 billion by the not guilty verdicts. That apparently there was this belief that Michael was going to be convicted, he was going to be remanded to jail immediately, that there would be a huge buildup to the sentencing of Michael Jackson, where they would be reporting from the jail every day. Is he going to commit suicide? What is he eating? What is he reading? How does he look? Who's visiting him? This was all supposed to be a major, industrial achievement by the worldwide media. And I was told that I had cut them out of all of that by the acquittals. And there's something wrong with that. There's something just very unjust about the way the media focused on him and just tried to spin the result they wanted because they thought it was good for business. I have heard rumors, akin to what you're saying. I've heard that reporters who were trying to be balanced were told, stop saying that. This guy's going to be convicted. I've also told that the major networks were highly embarrassed by the acquittals, and the word to their people in Santa Maria were just get out of town as fast as possible. And your major networks had, 70, 80 people up here permanently, and within 48 hours, they were gone, trying to focus on something else. So from my point of view, and of course I have a bias, I thought the reporting was collectively a disgrace. I thought it was very, very self-serving. I thought it had nothing to do with justice or the truth.
Do you include my show in that?
I don't include your show in that, although I couldn't watch your show very much because I was too busy preparing for trial every day.
Did you ever catch any part of my show?
I caught a few snippets during the trial. What I would do is I would be working and then I would, take a break and just channel surf. But remember, I was in bed at 7:30 virtually every night.
My show starts at 7:30. You were in bed at 8.
I was in bed latest 8 o'clock, and I was focusing on the trial every day. I would get little snippets here and there. I would hear people tell me things about your show. And the word I was getting was that you were trying to be very fair, unlike most of the media. But I can't say I watched it a lot because I was just too busy getting ready for trial.
Of course. Did any of the major networks offer to do an interview with you? Did they call you and say, we want to do an interview?
Oh, all sorts of things went on. First of all, I think I was the...
I mean, after the trial.
Oh yeah, I was on
Larry King, did they call you?
I was on all the morning shows the next morning, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, International CNN. That night I was interviewed for an hour by Larry King. I did do some other interviews, Italian TV and British radio, and I was on the Jay Leno show later in the week. And then I did interviews here and there for some networks, but I stopped it fairly quickly. I had a bad taste, to be honest with you, about the media. After the verdict, every country around the world wanted to interview me. I mean, the calls were endless. My message machine at work just was jam-packed. The moment you cleared it, it was jam-packed again.
That's why you didn't answer my calls.
Well, maybe. But I was exhausted by the experience. I was disillusioned by the media, their treatment of Michael Jackson and their coverage of the case.
In the last year, have they called you again to try to get another interview with you?
Oh, I get calls periodically, yes.
And you said no to them?
No, I've been interviewed a couple of times here and there, but not a lot. Now, when Michael passed away, the same thing started again. My message machine at work was just jam-packed. And I was in the middle of a jury trial with Susan Yu. I did a couple of interviews that I could fit in because I really wanted to talk about what a wonderful person Michael was. And I really say that sincerely. He was one of the nicest, kindest human beings I've ever met and ever will meet. And I thought he was treated so unjustly that I really wanted to speak out for him.
But you chose to come up here and do my show to speak out rather than do Fox or CNN?
Well, I've done those shows too.
You did those shows too.
I've done some of them.
Did they chop you up and edit out?
Oh, they always do a little bit of that. CNN did a couple of shows on Michael Jackson, but generally speaking, I want it to be one-on-one. I don't appear with a panel of people who are all told scream about this and scream about that. That just kind of nauseates me. So I've done some interviews here and there, and I have nothing against doing interviews. I like them to be tasteful. I like them to be one-on-one. A couple of times I did an interview with one other person, and it wasn't really my cup of tea, but I did consent to it. But more generally speaking, I say it's got to be one-on-one or don't interview me.
I believe you're right. The media was tremendously biased. I witnessed it. I remember the one day, it was that day Gavin gets caught in the lie.